about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So this week, RFK Jr. vowed to identify the cause of autism by September. This is a pretty bold goal, but I'm glad somebody's doing it. So the United States Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has promised to determine the cause of autism by this September, saying, quote, "We've launched a massive testing and research effort that's going to involve hundreds of scientists from around the world. The rate of autism diagnosis has risen from 1 in 150 children born in 1992 to 1 in 36 for those born in 2012. Could even be higher now. Often attributed to broader definitions and broader detection methods." Well, that's not what he said. I'm sorry. He said they're involving hundreds of scientists around the world, but those numbers came from Hoodline.com. So Kennedy stated, "We encourage people to get the measles vaccine, so he is supporting vaccination. He does question government mandates, as a lot of people do. But people are concerned that if he is going to have this massive goal, what is he going to find or uncover as it relates to vaccines?" Now, even though most of the science says no, autism is genetic, vaccines don't cause autism. One working theory is, do some children get a neurological side effect or an encephalitis, an inflammation of the brain that then causes them to look autism-like or express that challenge as somebody who might have autism? So people are concerned that there may be, and I've spoken to doctors, and doctors are mixed. Where the scientific studies that we've read and we've studied said, no, autism is genetic. It happens pre-womb, wouldn't be caused by a vaccine. All right. And I've seen the research on that. I believe it. Having family members who have autism in our extended family, it does look like it's very genetic. And I even asked the mother of these children, I go, do you think at all this was related to any of the vaccines? Or no, there's a genetic bloodline. And so having autism in the family, I can see that, yes, there are genetic roots for this. However, we do have side effects with things, including vaccines. And if they do research and discover that there could be, in rare cases, a neurological ramification that could happen in a very small subset of the population, I think parents have a right to know about that. Dr. Peter Marks resigned as the nation's top vaccine official. He has rejected the idea that that vaccines could cause autism. He does say, however, it is an incredibly complicated issue. And in his resignation letter, he criticized Robert Kennedy Jr. for spreading misinformation, especially as measles deaths have risen among unvaccinated individuals. And he says he's warning against giving families false hope. So the debate over vaccines intensified because of COVID and the COVID vaccine. You had a lot of parents who were on board with the child vaccination rollout and program until they saw what people were doing with the COVID vaccine. When the government said, look, you have to have a vaccine or you can't go to school, or you can't go into Allegiant Stadium to see a Raiders game, or you have to have proof of vaccination because then you won't give it to somebody. When we learned that, no, you could still carry the illness and give somebody COVID despite the vaccine, you could even still get COVID yourself. Once the human population disproved what Fauci and the CDC was saying and dishing, then people started to rethink, well, wait a second, what else is the CDC wrong on? And I don't want the CDC wrong. I need the CDC. As a doctor, I need to be able to say, guys, go to the CDC website. We doctors need guidelines because we get sued if we don't follow standard of care. So we need to trust what that standard of care is. And we need to ensure that standard of care is helping people and not wrong and not politically driven. And when people were telling me, don't be talking about that doctor who died after his COVID vaccine. There was a doctor that went into ITP, lost his platelets, then suffered a brain hemorrhage because he didn't have enough clotting factors. And his wife had said he's still pro-vaccine. Even on his deathbed, he was pro-vaccine, but he died after he got the vaccine. I forget if he had Pfizer or Moderna. And people were telling me, do not bring that up on your show. I'm like, why not? Okay, we're not here to hide stuff. We're here to discuss the news and discuss what's out there and have honest conversations about things. But once people and parents saw that there was like a shadow banning and social media was not allowing some of these stories or issues to come out, remember, people were passing out after getting the vaccine. And they stopped videotaping that. They wouldn't let any video or cameras or anything like that because they didn't want people seeing people fall or go into an abnormal heart rhythm or get syncopal or faint. And so I understand you don't want to scare the public. I get that because it's scary. I mean, being a physician, when you see what I've seen, it's a wonder we're all walking and talking and doing what we do. But if somebody has to make an educated decision about their child or about themselves, they should be able to make an educated decision and have the access to the information. And so with RFK Jr., looking at vaccines and vaccine safety, that is something that the American public wanted. That's why they voted in Trump, and they did support R.F. Kennedy Jr. And there's a lot of Democrats who are anti-vaccine. There's a lot of Republicans who are pro-vaccine. This isn't about being right or left, pro-life, pro-choice. This is about, look, I think the vaccines work. I think they save lives. But if there are side effects, you better be transparent about it. You better let us make an educated decision. And if we are concerned about some of the side effects, you don't call us crazy. You don't threaten to take our kid away. You don't not allow our kid to go and see a doctor. That was one thing I noticed. Doctors wouldn't let children who weren't vaccinated, get seen. It's not the child's fault. If the child's sick, somebody's got to still take care of these kids. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Hotshot Secret Stiction Eliminator.
Stiction, that sticky friction, undermines the performance of diesel engines. Third-party ASTM testing verifies that Stiction Eliminator removes 2 times as much stiction than any alternative on the retail shelf. Stiction Eliminator is formulated to be left in the engine oil. It works as you drive.
Available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hotshot Secret. Powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So this is an interesting email I want to read you guys. We're leaving the name off. They want to be anonymous, but I want to talk about this next segment about us and our jealousy or envy. Well, this is what they write. They say, I'm not a jealous person, but I get sad that I'm not experiencing what other people are. This person writes, I have friends who get to travel, have taken pictures with President Trump, ate at restaurants I can't afford, flown first class, invited to parties. This person says, I feel I'm missing out on life because I'm middle class. How do you cope with the envy or FOMO, the fear of missing out? This is one of the hazards of social media. One of the hazards of social media is everybody posts the good parts of their life, with the exception of a dead cat and a dead relative. And I mean, I like to post about everything, whether I'm constipated, whether I have colonoscopy, but the average person, they're going to post a picture when they look good. They're going to post a trip. They're going to post things, and they're not going to go, yeah, I wasn't invited anywhere, all December. There were no Christmas parties I was invited to or New Year's Eve parties, so I just sat home and watched Netflix. They're not going to post that. So you sit there on social media and you see everybody post everything. This isn't the first person that brought up they want a picture with Donald Trump. I don't have a picture with Donald Trump. I don't have a picture with any president. I understand that somehow that became some sort of a goal or a bucket list item. Having taken pictures with celebrities, yeah, it's cool because you get to post. But I mean, are you really hanging out with that celebrity? Does that mean you have an in? Standing in a line, getting to stand and take a picture with the president is very, very cool. But I wouldn't get depressed and fear you're missing out just because you don't have a picture with the president. But I get that because people who have, gotten to do that, they post it all over the place. Sometimes it's their profile picture, and good for them. They're happy about what they've done. But we talk about midlife crises and burnout because that happens when you feel like you've wasted your life or you feel like you haven't lived a life you should have. And none of our lives were wasted. I mean, if you went to school, if you had kids, if you worked, if you supported yourself, if you helped your family, if you were there for your friends, there was nothing wasteful about what you've done. But now you're thinking, well, I'm middle-aged, I might not be able to travel. I might not be able to do that much. And you start to get a little sad. That's why I'm going to, take my mom to Israel. She's always wanted to go. She's always wanted to see the Holy Land. We're going to go to the Christian quarter, the Jewish quarter. We're going to try to go to River Jordan, all that. So she gets to see as much as she could see before she loses her eyesight completely. It's not going to be an easy trip. It's going to be expensive. It's not going to be easy. She's not very mobile. But you have a lot more power than you think. You really do. And you also have a misguided perception, we all do, of the rich. I understand a lot of people were writing about how they couldn't stand Katy Perry. I don't know much about Katy Perry. I like her music. I love her husband, Orlando Bloom. Loved him as Legolas. I have nothing against Katy Perry, but apparently people don't like her, and they, were jealous that she got to go up in space and they didn't, and their lives look so blessed. I don't know how blessed these rich people's lives are. I think Cate Blanchett is going to quit acting. She's leaving acting. I don't know why. She's a great actress. I mean, people have their issues, or they have their demons, or they have their challenges. And, for me, I love where my life is. I'm not, much of a celebrity, but I still get to be in show business. I still get to be with my family. I get to go places and still have privacy and not people, I kind of like exactly where I am. Do I want to be as popular or as well as easily identified as Angelina Jolie? No. Because sometimes I got to go to the bathroom and I got diarrhea, or sometimes I want privacy. And so sometimes you have to kind of look at where these rich people are or these celebrities are, and you don't have to necessarily feel sorry for them, but understand that might not be a life you want. I mean, look at Governor Shapiro. Somebody wanted to murder him in his home. Setting his home on fire could have hurt his kids and family on Passover night. Look at Donald Trump and multiple assassination attempts. Do you really want to, careful what you wish for. You become, look at all these people who were like huge actors in the 80s and they were all on all these teen magazines and you don't even know where they are. Some of them are just working at regular jobs like any of us now, because, once you stop getting acting jobs, you still have to support yourself. And what's also one thing that I don't feel sorry about is some of these individuals, they get stalkers. I've had stalkers just on radio, but I couldn't imagine the amount of stalkers that people get if they've been in a movie. And then it could be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And you could think, well, nobody recognizes me anymore. No, if somebody sees that movie the night before and says, I want to find them or I want to hunt them down, you could be accosted 20 years from now, 30 years from now. You may never be safe. So I don't want to be one of these celebrities. Fly first class, how you get around that is you use a credit card that has miles and points. And I would really follow some of those, not those hoarder, but those couponers, those extreme couponers. They give a lot of tips and details and ways where you could enjoy upgrades and things. When I get first class is fun. I've flown first class a few times. It is nice. It's a waste of money. It's probably the worst return of investment. There's money better spent. But it's nice to experience it, but you only really need to experience it once. And even if that, you just need to be comfortable on a flight. And that's what's important. I was in Italy and we upgraded our flight to first class. All that meant is the middle seat wasn't sat in. And they just stuck something in there for a table. That was it. It wasn't a big deal at all. And so, what you need to do so you don't have that FOMO, that fear of missing out, is you need to have some realistic expectations of what do you want to see. I guess the big thing now is everybody's going to Japan. Everybody wants to see Japan. I'd love to see Japan. But I don't have time. I don't have money. Iceland was the big thing last year. But the problem with that is, Iceland, just too many people were going and with too many tourists, but Iceland is also a biggie. So you see everybody go there. You're like, well, I want to go there. And I don't blame you for wanting to go there. So you could plan a trip. You could find ways to cut and save but you're not going to be able to experience everything. And the average person who looks like they're wealthy and happy isn't necessarily having the dream life you would think. Look at Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt cheats on her. And I'm a big Brad Pitt fan from an acting standpoint, but that had to have sucked. Where he works on a movie with Angelina Jolie, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, they decide to hook up, allegedly, and then Jennifer Aniston gets dumped. If Jennifer Aniston could be cheated on, any of us could. I know it looks like their lives are all blessed, but when you really kind of look at what some of them deal with, it's not that. They're always worried about the relevancy. They're always worried, are they going to have a job? Are they going to? People are envious of Mark Zuckerberg. I heard that Mark Zuckerberg was really worried that Facebook wouldn't be relevant, that he was going to have all our friends erased, where we had to re-establish our friends to make us relevant again and bring us back. When people have something, they're afraid to lose it. You aren't always going to be at the top of your game. Michael Phelps is not going to always be the fastest swimmer. We talked about post-athletic depression. Once you win, there's not a lot of goals beyond that. What, another gold medal? And then what if you stop making gold medals? Is your life over? So what you need to do is come up with different goals and different things. If you've always wanted to write a book, write a book. It doesn't cost you any money, and you can publish it on Amazon. If you always wanted to paint, paint. If you wanted to record a song, record a song. You could do all this on your own now. If you want to travel, travel. Once you get to Europe or get to some of these countries, it's not that expensive using public transportation and all that. And figure out a way where you could coupon or use points or miles or, but figure out what it is you think you want to have done before you die. Did you want to do a journey to Medjugorje? Did you want to see Israel? There's because the more you feel you got left out, the more you're kind of feeling you're lacking, and you're not. Your life is a lot more full than you know. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Lisa Wolf here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So we're getting more and more information on fluoride. Now that I guess we have an administration that is allowing there to be more transparency. Fluoridation in water happened, I think we started it in the 1940s because people had poor dental health. And with the lack of fluoride, we saw it wreak havoc on people's dental hygiene, dental health, as well as cardiovascular health. Once you lose your teeth or you have chronic inflammation, it can affect other parts of the body. And so fluoridating our water was a huge advancement and helped us improve a lot of our dental health. Well, then we started to have fluoride toothpaste. We increased access to dental care. And then the question started to rise. I remember in the 90s on, are we doing too much? Are kids getting too much fluoride? And we learned about fluoridosis and how fluoridosis could affect kids neurologically and academically. But we still kept fluoride in the water because they said, nope, it has to, that was the science, World War II days, we keep it. Well, Marv Key Jr. has been kind of questioning that, saying, does that need to be relooked at? Well, apparently a study was done during the Biden administration, and it was an NIH study that was released recently saying they found excess fluoride exposure with kids affected their IQ. Now, I'm not sure why we didn't hear about this during the Biden administration, but it was a study that was done during the Biden years, and we only heard about the results a few weeks ago. Now we have another study saying fluoride exposure is linked to detrimental effects on the health of pregnant women and infants. This is a new meta-analysis being reported by Fox News, where they looked at various studies, and they have concluded that exposure to fluoride offers little benefit to the fetus and young infant. They say systemic fluoride exposure could have a harmful effect on bone strength, thyroid function, and cognitive development. Now, these were findings published in the Annual Review of Public Health. They say community-wide administration of systemic fluoride may pose an unfavorable risk-benefit ratio for pregnant women, fetus, and infant. Philippe Grandjean, a researcher on the study and professor of environmental medicine at the University of Southern Denmark, told Fox News Digital that fluoride is toxic to early brain development. It is not dependent on the source of the fluoride. In addition to fluoridated drinking water, we need to limit ingestion, he said, of fluoridated toothpaste, which by itself is great for dental health, but don't swallow it. So he recommended also avoiding consumption of certain types of black tea, especially those that are grown in fluoride-rich soils like East Africa and certain parts of China and India. So fluoride is fantastic for dental health, but too much is not good. So how do we quantitate it? Well, we do have fluoride in vitamins, but if it's in our drinking water, we can't quantitate that. So you might think, well, my child only has one glass from the sink. But what about what about when you wash dishes? What happens when you wash food? What happens when you cook with it? We don't know how much they're getting. You know, it's one thing to say we're going to recommend the vitamins and these are the vitamins, you could give them out for free, to low-income families if they can't purchase them. But then you know the aliquots, you know the micrograms, you know the milliequivalents. But as it pertains to, well, it's in our drinking water, so we're getting it. But how much are we getting? And then the toothpaste issue. How many times have you swallowed toothpaste? I did as a kid. If I had no place to spit it out, I had to swallow it. Well, a lot of kids will swallow it, or they won't rinse their mouth out, or they don't know how to swish and spit. So that's why we use a very, very tiny amount with kids, because we don't want them to swallow it and then it accumulate. So, where do we go from here? Well, where we go from here is we reevaluate the science. I understand Bernie Sanders says we don't need to relitigate the science. Yes, we do. We always need to relitigate it. COVID is different. Fluoride exposure and other products the world is changing. Things are different. Our bodies are different than they were, 80 years ago. Our access to dental care, our access to certain products. So we are, I know a lot of people say, but we're not drinking water from the tap. We're always drinking bottled water from plastic. I don't want us drinking bottled water from plastic. I want us to be able to trust our tap water. People don't trust the tap water, so they drink bottled water out of plastic, and now we're being exposed to too much plastic. I think we need to relook at these things. So the study that came out last month that the NIH did was the more fluoride exposure, the lower IQ could be. And RFK Jr. has said that, for something topical, we don't necessarily need to have it systemic. So RFK Jr. said it was originally thought that when we put it in water back in the 1940s that they were systemic. In other words, if you drank it, it would do something to your body to prevent the growth of cavities, but that's not how it works. And if you have too much fluoride, he says you can have extreme losses in bone density. So 200 million Americans, or 75% of the population, are drinking fluoridated water. We just don't know how much they're getting. And Utah is the first state that has now passed legislation to ban fluoride in public drinking water. Governor Spencer Cox signed the bill last month. It was RFK Jr. went to the state. They had like kind of a big ceremony. And now Ohio, South Carolina, Florida have lawmakers there have also submitted proposals to restrict local governments or water system operators from adding fluoride to water. The other concern I also have is the national security threat. Remember, this happened in a small town back east. This was a couple years ago, where we believe allegedly a foreign entity was messing with the sodium hydroxide, and luckily the person who was on duty saw that somebody was screwing around with the valves, hacked into the system to try to overload it with that mineral. Who's monitoring the disbursements or the aliquots or the dumping of the, who's supervising that? And is that all computerized and able to be hacked? I don't want people distrusting our water system. I really don't want the idea that you have to buy water. And it's interesting. My mom lived in Florida during the 60s, and she said when there was a hurricane, what they would do is fill up the bathtub. So they would have water that they could use just in case the pipes got blown. And they would be drinking bathtub water. I hope the tub was clean. But look at how now we're all spoiled going, oh, I won't drink any tap water. Well, I don't know how much safer the plastic water is. But if we are going to drink tap water, we need to make sure we're not imbibing too much of something we don't need. And this is why I'm a fan of RFK Jr. I know a lot of people disagree with what he has to say, but I am waiting for somebody to at least question what might need to be reevaluated. And if it turns out, nope, looks like we do need the fluoride in the water, then great. At least somebody looked into it. So, he wants to find out why we're having autism rates skyrocket. Does that have to do with the fluoride? We don't know. But what we have all these different things that are making us scratch our head. Childhood obesity, rising in autism, lack of physical fitness. When you watch these videos of 1960s PE classes, you think it's a military boot camp. No, that's just what these kids were supposed to do in physical education. Nowadays, all these kids need notes. They walk the mile. Why do we have so many kids that aren't physically fit? We need to look and evaluate what are we doing differently than in the 1960s. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to totalwellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. totalwellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I don't mean to sound anti-college or anti-university. I went to college. I'm very grateful for all the college education I had. I'm just anti-billions of dollars going to them if they allow anti-Semitism. And I'm also anti-taxpayer dollars going to Ivy League when Ivy League is rich. I'm very confused by that. And so Trump wants to cut $2 billion in federal grants to Harvard. Because of the anti-Semitism protests that have happened on campus, the lack of administration doing what they should do to allow everybody to feel free to go to campus and class. And Barack Obama, Yale, and other academic institutions who you would think would agree, saying this is egregious. Nobody should be anti-Semitic. Nobody should block a child or a student from going to class. They've come out in support of Harvard, the other side. Now, that's very confusing. So Harvard is facing a funding freeze, and elite universities are saying, well, Trump is hurting our free inquiry and civil rights. Really? When you have an American that doesn't feel safe to go to class, that gets trumped over. That there are so many ways where you could have debates on campus. You could have peaceful assembly. Not the way it's been done the last few years. Well, former President Obama says Harvard has set an example for other higher ed institutions, rejecting an unlawful and ham-handed attempt to stifle academic freedom. What academic freedom? Protesting, sitting out, not letting a teacher go to the bathroom, interrupting kids in class? How is that academic freedom? Obama says, while taking concrete steps to make sure all students at Harvard can benefit from an environment of intellectual inquiry, rigorous debate, and mutual respect. This is a statement from Obama. He says, let's hope the other institutions follow suit. If Harvard wants to have a debate night where you have both sides debate what happened after the Hamas massacre and what should be done with Gaza, they could do that. You could have a debate night. But taking over campus areas, preventing people from feeling like they could go to class, outing people, making them feel scared, no, that's terrorism. That you can't do that. I don't understand why this is so difficult. You could have any debate. You could have, lectures. You could have both sides. You could have guests. But you're making people feel uncomfortable and not allowing them to, as I said before, if any student who is paying $60,000, $70,000 a year feels like they can't go to class, and these institutions are saying, well, why don't you do remote? They should get a full refund and then some. So, and then again, why are we giving Harvard money? Why does Harvard get federal money? So, according to The Guardian, is this The Guardian? Yes. They say the standoff between some of U.S.'s most prestigious universities and the federal government deepened after Harvard rejected the demands of the Donald Trump administration. The president is trying to curb anti-Semitism on campus, but people are trying to say, well, that's not what he's doing. He wants to curb academic freedoms. Harvard's president, Alan Garber, said no government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they could pursue. Well, then if they're a private university, then they don't need taxpayer dollars. Then why do you care what Trump thinks? Tell Trump you don't need his money. But no, they want the money. Well, if taxpayers are going to pay into this, then you need to do what taxpayers want. If you want the freedom of being able to have whatever, BS riot or whatever happen or sit in, just then you're not going to do it on the taxpayer dime. So if Harvard's president does not want the government to dictate, then don't take any of the government's money. The Trump administration, through the multi-federal agency Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism, has frozen $2.2 billion in multi-year grants and $60 million in a multi-year contract valued to Harvard. So you see, if you're Harvard and you don't want Trump, chiming in on the BS that's happening, then don't take the money. But they want the money. Obama intervened after 876 faculty members at Yale University's fellow Ivy League institution published a letter to their leadership expressing support for standing up to the Trump administration. They say, we stand together at crossroads. American universities are facing extraordinary attacks that threaten the bedrock principles of democratic society, including the rights of free expression, association, and academic freedom. See, I don't understand that, because what we're hearing is students were not able to go to class, or they were in class being interrupted by people supporting Hamas. I mean, I am on the side of protecting the students being able to learn and not feel like they have to hide their Judaism or hide what they believe in, and they could go to class without being interrupted. Yet apparently they're on the other side. That the academic freedom is you being able to sit there and protest and prevent kids from going to study. You guys are making no sense to me. This is hypocritical. Now, Columbia University, that had a lot of pro-Palestinian protests in 2024, has agreed to partly comply with a series of demands for the Trump administration. How it'll handle the demonstrations, academic departments, and anti-Semitism, as it received warnings it would lose federal funding. Now, they also defended academic freedoms. If you're defending academic freedoms, that means you're letting the student go to class. You're letting the student study. You could have on campus a place for demonstrations. A lot of universities have this. There's an area where you could hold your assembly. The problem is most of those areas are not in very high trafficked areas, so it doesn't block people from being able to go to class. And protesters don't like that. They want it to be where everybody could see. They don't want it to be in a back parking lot. They want it to be because they think they're going to get more bang, for their buck if they could block the entrance of a building. But most universities have an area where you could peacefully assemble. You could assemble. You could be out there. It's easy access. It's in a parking lot. It's still on campus. You could advertise to people, this is where you're going to be doing your sit-in or your assembly or your peaceful assembly. But it's just not going to be on the main walkway. It's not going to be in the student union, and it's not going to interrupt people's academic freedom to get to class. But the protesters don't want that. They want it to be where it's the most visible. Okay, well, come on here. You can't have it both ways. And so, if these universities want to do whatever the hell they want, then they have to fund themselves. But donors are leaving. Donors are like, there's no way I'm going to donate money for this. I mean, you don't have to allow anti-Semitism for there to be free speech. I mean, there are people that think, Trump has mental issues and they think Biden is completely cognitive. There are students that will meet and assemble for that. They could do that on campus. Peace, asking for peace, asking for, they can peacefully assemble. But once you start to build hate and rub salt in the wound that thousands of people got killed and hurt and abducted during the Gaza attack, that's not a peaceful assembly. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.